Hey, this is Carson Epp, and this is my art appreciation weekly sketchbook. So let's get into it. So my first journal entries for week 10, where I was just asked to draw two different emotions, abstract illustrations of my emotions. I picked tranquility, or peace, and then wrath or fury. And what I was going for here was mostly a dichotomy between smooth lines, like these not quite concentric, but overlapping circles, and these jagged lines to represent anger. I kind of went for like a mosaic model, so kind of inspired by the Cubism of Picasso, and the color scheme is slightly inspired off of Rothko's colored field paintings, but it ends up being more like just a mosaic, my own unique take. For this one, kind of like how I got these 4 points here that kind of like represent a compass rose, and I guess having peace in your life is kind of like this, is adjacent to having direction in your life, and that's what a compass helps you find. A very floral design, going with some sine waves like from mathematics. Very smooth, very soothing overall atmosphere, in contrast to these jagged, chaotic lines. This kind of spiral motion down into the center, kind of signifying a self-destructive tendency of people who are consumed by their wrath. The center eye, kind of inspired by, I know it's supposed to be abstract, but I take inspiration from other media. Kind of inspired by HAL 9000 from 2001: A Space Odyssey. I did some mad scribbling on top of the lines with my pencil to kind of signify true chaos and like almost like a storm-like wrath. Just really embodying what it feels for me to be angry, irrationally so. All right, next up, I have this image. Now, you're probably confused what you're looking at, and the reality, the actual orientation of the image is like this. You can see there's the title at the top there. So this is quite the image. It's actually my wall right there with my computer screen. So this part's the computer screen, and that is the map up there. That's of a forest from The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. So I'm a big fan of Tolkien's work. This is a book I had held up there from the series Aragon, and this is from one of my favorite video games, Hollow Knight. Now, the reason it came out pink was not really intentional, just a simple printing error, and yet I thought it kind of fit the theme of abstraction, and the whole pink color scheme kind of signifies or symbolizes my love for this fantasy genres and these stories and their mediums. So, let's see. The monochromatic color scheme is kind of reminiscent of Agnes Martin's works, where she has the just abstract, serene, just like grids, and it's not quite the same, It's just, I like how off balance the framing is, kind of gives it more dynamicness. And right here, this is where all three of these images meet. It's kind of like the focal point of the image, a little off center, and I feel like this point represents me as the artist, because where these things intersect in the context of this image is is me, really, because they're all my interests. So metaphorically speaking, the intersection point is, my mind, where all these things coalesce and, collide. So that's pretty much it for this one. Next one, we had the postmodern art. I made this artistic choice here, titled All for What. And what this boils down to is just being a commentary on people who hoard vast amounts of wealth to the detriment of others, and kind of the irony in all that futility in the face of mortality, because you are the jar as a human. You accumulate all these possessions like this wealth, but you're ultimately fragile, and this hammer is supposed to be death, I guess. Always present, always a looming threat, even if it's just in the background, taped up on a wall, so to speak. Kind of like, I like how I was able to use just everyday objects in my house. I remember thinking about how people's greed kind of, bothers me. When I think about an issue people have, seeing just coins in my house, I'm like, that's perfect representation. And then other problem people have is, I guess, not a problem, but the fear of their immortality. I thought I could incorporate those two elements together in this one image. So, and then all that stuff in the background, that was just kind of like natural, just on that table, as it were. I thought this is a great, in the moment thing to like represent, I guess, consumerism itself. No diss on my sister though. I put it all there. I like her interpretation of it being about a class disparity in the upper class withholding the hammer, which is the means to access the wealth in the jar, holding it above them, dangling it like a carrot on a stick or whatever. That's a really cool interpretation. It reminds me that art is, not just one clear-cut vision, not the vision of the author, but that all perspectives have equal merit. And I think that's really fascinating. I like how postmodernism art are able to utilize just everyday objects and utilize the symbolism they have within our society to, commentate on it. Like with Pike and his electronic superhighway. It's a cool homage to television, but it also kind of encapsulates how people are transfixed by TV, how pervasive it's become in our culture. And this is all the writing I did for this. Next part is just writing, because I can't put a 10-minute video of me drinking water into a book, unfortunately. But basically, in postmodernism, people have been using their bodies as sort of the art piece, especially Marina Abramovich. And her work is truly something else. I mean, being able to endure these, long spans of tedious, even grueling activities and just for the sake of the art it's dedication, truly. And, she's a very unique person to have that capacity to do that thing. But, trying a little bit out of that myself, drinking the water, I can kind of see, how she might be able to tolerate all that. Because when you really pay attention to I remember thinking about the glass on my lips and the feeling of the water flowing down past my tongue, and paying attention to all the little details of the light refracting through the water as I look down, I guess, the barrel of the cup, down the cup, into the cup, and seeing the water swirl around there. And we're paying attention to those details, you kind of lose track of time. It's like you slow your brain down to match the pace of your actions, just, slowly taking sips. Every little detail becomes like almost like an important scene in a movie. And so before you know it, all that, those 10 minutes have passed by and you've sat there just kind of oblivious to it all. And I feel like that has certainly helped her in all the long hours she spends maybe sitting in one position, or she has artists doing the same. Like in her The Artist is Present exhibition, she sat, in a chair for the entire opening to closing hours for months, days on end, months for months. And how do you think she was able to tolerate that? I mean, you gotta you can't think about just being there. You have to live in the moment, truly. You can't think about the time that you've spent, the time you have left. You gotta find enjoyment in the details. And when you have a new set of eyes in front of you every couple of minutes, there's a lot of gratification you could probably find in that. A lot of detail to find in someone's appearance, in the nature of their eyes, the way they sparkle, the way everyone's unique, and a lot of details in every individual. So that's my perspective on that. I think it's fascinating that you can, use your own body as a commentary on the human condition. And then the last one I have was about global art and picking an identity for myself. Now, I drew these caricatures of how I would identify myself: the gamer, the Floridian, the nerd. And, I guess a lot of the ones in the PowerPoint were of people, were symbolic in cultural ways, right? With Shaw's Paradise Lost, he had many of his cultural Indian influences. A lot of people using, representing their own cultures, through their art. And, I'm just your average white guy American, so I don't really have any cultural heritage I'm particularly fond of. But one culture I am fond of is that of the internet. And on the internet, things like caricatures like these are super pervasive. They're everywhere. And kind of representing that culture, not through symbology, but just through adapting it, what I've experienced online, and adapting it in my own personal art style, is kind of like me embodying my personality or my identity through my culture. And it has a lot of cultural significance too. The art you see on the internet, it's satirical, it unites people through humor. Even it's primarily used for humor, but even still, it's not to be understated, the effect it has. So, I feel like that's kind of, I don't really have, my culture doesn't exist in the past. It's an ongoing, evolving thing of the future. I can't wait to see where it takes me. But that's pretty much it for the art. That's all 5 entries I got in. And hope you enjoyed.